Greetings, listeners, and welcome. I am your host and narrator, Beatlesfanize. Thank you for coming. Tonight, we join a man who wants to explore a forbidden area of the Rocky Mountains. The area in question is not forbidden due to it being private property or owned by the government, but rather because of what lurks in the area and is the cause of many missing persons. So let's see what happens to our protagonist as he goes exploring. So turn out the lights, draw the drapes, and sit back and listen to There Are Forbidden Places in the Woods by MC Horror, Dark and Creepy. There are places in the Rocky Mountains that are known by word of mouth as forbidden areas. This is not because they are private property or owned by the government, but rather because of what lurks in their midst. Anyone stupid enough to wander into these areas, even unknowingly, will be haunted, cursed, or most likely never heard from again. Many cases of missing people in the wilderness are people who have wandered into these territories and who never come back. These restricted areas can be found all across the world in diverse places. I heard of some of these stories, and one mountain area in particular caught my eye. The stories about it all varied in their description of the creature that lived in there, but they all described the blood eyes and the sound it emitted exactly the same. They said the eyes pierced your soul, and some older people explained that that was all that they could see of the creature in the darkness. However, the main thing they focused on was the sound that it made. Supposedly, it was like a deep clicking sound originating from the back of its throat. It supposedly sent nerves shooting up and down your spine. I was young, immature at this point in my life, and so, after hearing these stories, I was very intrigued because I was always fascinated with the supernatural my entire life. I had binge-watched all of the TV shows that involved ghost hunting, so I wanted to do some exploring for myself and act like I was some famous ghost hunter. And so I took a camera with me into one of these supposedly forbidden mountain areas, among some other simple hiking supplies. I will regret this decision for the rest of my life. I started early in the morning, while light was still on the trail. I was not quite yet into the forbidden area when I saw an old man with an antique-looking cane off to the side of the trail, sitting on a decaying log. I nodded at him while keeping a steady pace, trying to avoid a conversation with the man, but he asked me in an old, scratchy voice, "Where are you headed, young man? You seem awfully eager to be on your way." I stopped and replied while staring at the man's wrinkled face. "Nowhere in particular, just going for a hike. That's all, really." The man sat there staring me down, and while straightening his back, he said, "I feel an evil presence stirring within you. Your true intentions are not what you have told me." I stood there perplexed by what he had said. Then I thought to myself, what is this man talking about? I have no evil intentions. The man spoke before I was able to ask him my question, saying, "The path you choose is your choice, but I'm warning you that whatever it is that you are pursuing on this trail, I beg of you, may you please rethink it. Look here, man. I have no evil intentions, and there's no darkness inside me. I'm just going for a hike," I replied with a weirded out tone. "He who seeks after the forbidden land seeks after the darkness, and he who seeks after the darkness will surely become it," the man stated firmly as he used his cane to stand on his feet. My insides began to twist because this man actually knew what I was doing up here. But how? I have told no one about this trip. So I asked, "Who are you? And how do you know where I'm going?" "Young man, that is not important. Just listen to me when I tell you to turn around. For there is only death where you are headed," the man said as he began to shuffle down the trail. "What are you talking about?" I hesitantly asked, wondering what this man's background story was. However, he did not reply and only continued down the trail. I looked down at my watch to see how much time I had lost by talking to the man. Damn, was that really 10 minutes? I said to myself as I quickly looked back to where the man was walking and saw that he was gone. He was far too slow to have gotten back into the tree line, but there was no other explanation of where he went so fast. I shrugged it all off as some crazy guy in the forest trying to keep people from going on the land he's squatting on. Hell, he's probably growing some illegal marijuana plants out here and is trying to scare people away from finding it. It reminded me of some Scooby-Doo story plot. I tapped the camera that I had in my back pocket and thought to myself, how fun it would be to expose the man and prove all the people scared off by this so-called forbidden land wrong. It would be a pleasure to yank the mask off of this old man's wrinkly face. Time continued to pass, and soon I was in the heart of the restricted land that fell between two mountains and was mainly a rocky valley hidden under a large ponderosa pines. The sun began to sink behind one of the mountains, and I prepared my camera to take a video of the man dressed as a monster. I was so eager I could hardly maintain my composure, and even let out shivers of excitement. It was at this time that I felt a cold chill tickle my spine, and a feeling of uneasiness came upon me. The wind spun with death, entwined with its every twist and turn. My heart began to pound, and with every pump of blood, I could feel each gush hit the frame of my body. I quickly looked up from the camera that I had placed on a rock and gazed around me. I saw nothing out of the ordinary until I saw a dark, glowing red dot hidden behind a tree. It looked like bright red blood, and it reminded me of the description of the monster. I shook off my nervous feelings and got back to the business I was supposed to do. So I quickly turned on the camera and faced it towards the tree. I last saw the red eyes, but there was nothing there now. Huh. Where did you go? I whispered to myself as I zoomed in on the tree. Out of the corner of my eyes, I saw a dash of blurred light, and so I turned swiftly and started recording. I now saw 2 red eyes peering at me from a rock that was about 50 meters away. I once again zoomed in the camera on the rock the creature was on, and there were no red dots on the camera's view. But strangely, I could see them clear as day with my eyes. Come on, pick this up! I screamed at the camera while doing all the adjusting I could on it, trying to get it to pick up the eyes. After a few moments, I looked up, and the eyes were gone, but a faint sound began echoing through the trees. Now I knew for sure that this was no animal, but it had to be the creature or the man dressed like one. The sound began to become more clear and less faint. It started to scare me, but with every clicking type sound that cut through the already dead breeze, I made sure the camera was recording just in case if it was able to pick up the sound. I grabbed a stick that was lying nearby and wielded it close to my chest. The sound grew louder with every aching moment, and my heart rate grew as it did. Then straight ahead of me, the figure and its red eyes with dead black pupils was crawling towards me. It was a humanoid figure with patches of hair covering parts of its body, but the rest was a sickly, pale skin with blood splotches. My stomach shot up to my throat, and I was frozen in fear. I knew for sure that this was no crazy man dressed up as a monster. But how it moved so inhumanly. As I stood there, the thing's clicking sounds grew, oh so louder and more aggressive, and it slowly crawled toward me. The only thing I could think of was to run, so I threw the stick at the beast and sprinted back into the trail, leaving all of my gear but the headlamp I had on. At this point, the sun had gone down, and no remnants of it remained. I just ran, not looking back for any reason. A loose rock rolled down from under my foot, which sent me barreling down the side of the rocky hill. My sleeveless legs and arms were all cut up, and my ankle was twisted. Behind me, I heard rocks being knocked down and branches snapping, and that awful sound it makes grew louder. I thought about getting up and running, but my ankle ached and hurt too much. So I swiftly looked around for any cover, but the only thing I could find that was close enough was a dying bush with dried up leaves. I had no choice, so I curled up inside of it and turned off my headlamp. My heart began to calm down as I heard the creature become quiet. However, the thing's deformed human face with holes for ears and a mouth large enough to swallow a small animal whole caught my gaze. Its eyes glowed in the dark, and I felt sick to my stomach looking at it. So I closed my eyes and prayed that it would not find me. After a few minutes of silence, I chose to open them, and the humanoid creature was there, just staring at me. I met its gaze, and as I did, I felt dead. All of my nightmares popped into my head at once. The only thing I could do was scream, and then it lunged at me, and my whole world went dark. When I finally opened my eyes or came back to consciousness, the sun was shining bright and clear on a blue sky. I slowly opened my eyes and then remembered what had happened, and I had jumped to my feet. I looked around me and I thought I died and went to heaven. There were beautiful trees, soft-looking grass, and a cabin with smoke coming out of it. I headed toward it and knocked on the door. The old man answered it with a smile on his old wrinkly face. "So, how did you sleep? You've been out there for 2 days now," the man asked, while brushing the hair on his chin. "I thought I had died," I replied in a confused tone, and then asked, "What happened to that creature?" "Well, I knew you'd be stupid enough not to listen to me, so I followed you to make sure you'd make it out safe. Well, at least most of you would make it out safe." "What do you mean, most of me?" I asked hesitantly. I started becoming more confused and scared. The man's smile went away as he grabbed his cane and tapped my right leg. I could see his cane hit my leg, but I felt nothing. The old man cleared his throat and said, "Your leg is gone, if you haven't noticed. It's the price you had to pay for going onto that land. Oh, and you are one of the lucky ones, young man. Many people go missing in these parts and are never heard of again. I stood there shocked as I rolled up my pants to see a wooden leg up to my knee. I was amazed that I haven't noticed until now. And then asked as I saw that he had all of his limbs. How do you go on that land and not get attacked? The same way I was able to get you out. That thing hates light, but only natural light, such as from a fire, not artificial light. Flashlights do nothing but edge on its curiosity, the old man said while he opened up a plastic cooler. So I guess my leg was eaten by the time you were able to save me? I asked as I examined my fake limb. The man took something out of the cooler and turned toward me. He was holding a severed leg as he said, No. My pet out there gets the scraps, and I get the tender parts. Well now, perhaps this will serve as a warning to those of you wanting to go exploring those forbidden places. You never know what you might find, or who, or what may find you. Until next time, pleasant dreams.